Labor is planning to target coalition seats as it tries to secure public support of its Stage 3 tax cut reversal and push the legislation through Parliament. It's back next week. Treasury analysis shows 85% of taxpayers in opposition electorates would be better off than under the already legislated cuts. 3.4 million Australians in seats such as Herbert and Forde in Queensland and Page and Cowper in New South Wales will be the target of Labor's campaign. On that note, let's bring in the Deputy Opposition Leader Sussan Ley. Sussan, good to see you. Thanks for your time. You're getting up bright and early in Perth for us this morning, so I appreciate that. But on this point, Labor's really trying to wedge you here. Are you vulnerable given that their changes help more people than they hurt?
Well, I take issue with that line about people being helped, Pete. Good morning. 100% of Middle Australia will be worse off even if this proposed change goes through. So the Prime Minister and his ministers might talk about percentages and numbers, but really for those who are desperate for cost of living relief today, this proposed tax relief is about $15 a week and it doesn't kick in for 5 months. And it takes 52 weeks of the year to actually get your entire tax cut. So 100% of Middle Australia is worse off today as a result of this government's policies. And there is no relief in sight, unfortunately. Now, there's two people standing between that cost of living relief that Australians desperately deserve, and they are the Prime Minister and the Treasurer.
OK, I mean, you can blunt that Labor attack by supporting those changes. Are you considering it?
We'll make our announcements in due course, and Peter Dutton made that clear yesterday, as did I. The Shadow Cabinet met in Perth yesterday, and we're here listening, as we always are, to Australians across this country. And we're hearing back that this lifetime tax on aspiration is not being loved anywhere in this country. And look, we will, of course, look at the detail. The legislation hasn't even appeared yet, Pete, but hidden in that detail was $28 billion of bracket creep over the next 10 years, which the Prime Minister didn't acknowledge at the press club or subsequently. So the justification for this whole measure, it just doesn't stack up. It really doesn't. Just remember, this was a cost of living election when Anthony Albanese stood there and said, life will be cheaper under me. This was what he promised Australian people, and this is what he is not delivering. So,
I mean, chatting to Matt Canavan yesterday from the Nationals' point of view, in a roundabout way, he's inclined to get behind it, albeit by pushing with some amendments. Can you give us an idea of an amendment that you might be or could be considering?
Gosh, Pete, amendments, we haven't even seen the legislation. Will it be one bill? Will it be two bills? And of course, the Greens have already said that they don't like the way it's shaping up. And as we know, the Greens want everyone to pay more tax. As you just mentioned, Parliament comes back next week. We'll go through our party room processes. We'll meet, we'll discuss this, and we'll wait and see what Labor actually produces, because right now, this liar in the lodge is panicked and desperate and unable to give Australians the confidence that they deserve and they're asking for. Spinning lies, spinning nonsense 100 times, looking down the camera and saying that he would, his word was his bond, and so on. So, we back the aspirations of Australians who work incredibly hard for their future and the future of their families.
Isn't it better?
We know that Australians are listening very carefully to this Prime Minister.
Just one more on that point, though. Isn't it better for the coalition to get behind it, though, rather than Labor going to the Greens and the Greens watering it down even more?
We've got to go through this with a fine-tooth comb, Pete. We really do, because as I said, the justification for the measure doesn't stack up. The Greens have made all sorts of comments. The Prime Minister has acknowledged that he's out of ideas. He told your colleague Andrew Clennell, Andrew, do you have any ideas for me? Because we've run out of ideas. He told the press club he's doing this because nothing else had worked. He's lied to the Australian people. His members of Parliament around the country in seats that they won at the last election, some by narrow margins, have prosecuted that lie as well, because they were voted in based on the tax relief they were promised promised by this Prime Minister. So there is a lot to do, and there are a lot of numbers to go through, and as I said, a lot of fine print, which we will do. All
fair points. Andrew coming up in the program, by the way, as well. Just finally, Susan, I want to get your thoughts on this energy report that has been released this morning. So wholesale power prices have come down by as much as 64% year on year. Does the government get any credit for this, or is this just because of favourable weather conditions?
I want to see power prices come down for Australians, and households and businesses are hurting. And in some cases, energy is the reason why they're closing their doors. Now, I suspect we'll see Chris Bowen doing a victory lap about this and, you know, giving himself a pat on the back. But I remember when Australians were promised a $275 power relief, and Labor's never actually walked away and said they're not going to do that. So while, yes, I'd love to see energy bills come down, the results of Labor's policy so far have seen them go up. So we've had doubling of people's bills 2 years in a row. That's huge, Pete, and that's making it harder and harder. And of course, it adds to the cost of goods across the country as well.
Yeah, look, there are a few variables. You know, nothing's happened just yet when it comes, you know, to the folks at home in terms of their bills. But, you know, as things stand at the moment, you're not going to give the government any credit, even though there was some intervention that it made?
I'm not going to give the government any credit because they have done nothing to relieve the cost of living pressures on Australians. And now we have a liar in the lodge, and he's prosecuting those lies across the country. And he's, you know, you can't believe anything he says. So, no, I won't give the government any credit because Australians are hurting and they need help. And they needed it 18 months ago.
Sussan Ley, thanks for your time.